This is episode 24 with Dr. Anthony G. Beck. Welcome to My Kid Cures Cancer. My name is Ryan Sternagel, former regular guy turned dadcologist, cancer coach, and health advocate. Each week we'll talk to a new expert on a particular aspect of beating cancer or human optimization to bring you one step closer on your path to true health. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now let's dive into this valuable, life-saving information which you're not going to hear about in a mainstream hospital. Alright everybody, I think it's safe to say that this is one of the more compelling ways to look at cancer we've heard on the show to date, and it comes from a guy who doesn't even specialize particularly in cancer. Go figure. As a physician who has practiced functional medicine for over 20 years and backed by tens of thousands of patient encounters, Dr. Anthony G. Beck doesn't merely manage diseases, he helps people resolve them. Dr. Beck has earned 4 National Medical Board certifications, is the founder and chief medical officer of Balance Protocol Institute, is the CEO and founder of Helion Nutraceuticals, and provides philanthropic care for combat veterans through such organizations as Warrior Angels Foundation, Millennium TBI Network, and Task Force Dagger Foundation. With extensive education in many clinical disciplines such as functional medicine, clinical nutrition, systems biology, epigenetics, and nutrigenomics, he takes a dynamic approach to assessing, educating, and working with his patients to help them achieve their highest levels of well-being. Dr. Beck's programs involve a full array of aspects, including an optimizing of one's environment of air, water, light, sound, EMF, healthful lifestyle design, individualized nutrition, hormone balancing, resolving immune dysfunction, and identifying hidden infectious diseases, as well as leveraging extensive laboratory and functional analysis to help patients determine their biochemical individuality. Even more importantly, Dr. Beck wants to empower patients to demand a higher level of healthcare from their healthcare providers. And like I said, if you've been researching cancer from a holistic perspective for any amount of time, you know that there are a whole lot of opinions out there on what cancer always is and the best way to reverse cancer always is. And it was really nice to step back with Dr. Beck and just ask what we are as individual humans and what is the best way to get ourselves well, for lack of a better term. We got into Dr. Beck's take on cancer that it is not one precise thing that everyone wants to try to pigeonhole it as, but more of a particular state of being within a unique individual person. And to reverse it, we need to find out what's specifically in the way for that person and then remove it. This thought might not be quite as comforting for some right up front as some of the more cookie cutter approaches we hear about, as it requires a little more detective work, but I certainly found it to be the most inspiring in the quest for true wellness. We got into Dr. Beck's 5 causes for cancer and all dysfunction in the body for that matter, and I've been thinking about it for a little while now, and it's a really good way to separate things out in your mind. And I haven't been able to come up with anything not covered within those 5 things. I think you're going to like it. And we took this notion of all of us as individuals to the next level, that we're all individuals living in a specific environment, and that environment has just about everything to do with our health and cannot be overlooked. We talked about some of the questions Dr. Beck asks and tools he uses when doing this detective work with his patients, and spent a bit of time on childhood cancer, which he had some very insightful thoughts on as well. So strap yourself in, you're in for quite the ride. As always, we're very glad you stopped by My Kid Cures Cancer, where it's our goal to bring all sides of the discussion on how to heal cancer and be truly healthy to the same table, to give you one place to tune into for the most well-rounded perspective possible. This is a show for people going through cancer, by people going through cancer, inspired by my wife Teddy and I's experience with childhood cancer, bringing our son Ryder back from a stage 4 cancer diagnosis to the happy, healthy little boy he is today. If you aren't dealing with cancer and want to keep it that way, the show will likely be very helpful to you as well. We'll get to Dr. Beck straight away, but it would be a good idea for me to let you know first that the information you hear on this show is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. If you missed it last week, our new segment on this show started off better than we could have imagined, and we're so excited to make it an ongoing thing from here on out. Every week on the My Kid Cures Cancer Thriver Stories, we'll hear from a new family that succeeded in taking a holistic approach to cancer, and this will, for the foreseeable future, be specific to childhood cancer. This is a live recording that starts Monday nights at 6 o'clock Mountain Time on the My Kid Cures Cancer Facebook page, which is then put on the podcast and YouTube that Thursday. Jessica Stone started it off with a bang last week, telling us about how her son went through the conventional ringer. When nothing was working, they were running out of options, when she literally found our site, mykidcurescancer.com, and started diving into the research from there and implementing everything, and her son has been cancer-free now for just about a year as a result. It was a really powerful interview, and we've been getting a ton of great feedback from it, so check it out and definitely catch this week's episode with our own contributing author, Scott Chiaveri, and his wife, Kaylee, talking about how they were able to basically completely reverse a ton of horrendous side effects their son was getting from conventional treatment and see him through to cancer freedom by implementing a natural approach and doing their own research. So, if you are listening to this show when it is released on October 30th, 2017, that will be tonight, live on the My Kid Cures Cancer Facebook page at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, or you'll be able to catch it on YouTube or the podcast on Thursday, so be sure to subscribe to one or both of those platforms if you're not already. But right now, let's get to this incredibly enlightening interview with Dr. Anthony G. Beck. Welcome back, everyone, to the My Kid Cures Cancer podcast. We have with us Dr. Anthony G. Beck. Dr. Beck, how are you?
Brother, what's happening?
Thanks.
Just surviving a little chill here in Florida. You know, the Sunshine State. We had a cold drop, so we were mid-70s today.
That sounds brutal.
I know, pretty funny, right?
Here in Park City, it's been hanging out in the 50s or 60s, and that's like, it's pretty balmy for this time of year. So we're feeling pretty good.
I was just talking to the wife. We need to make a trip to the chill, get a little skiing in.
Well, yeah, come around these parts in a couple months. We've only been here for a few years, but we're really enjoying we came from the Seattle area, so where it's like gray 10.5 months a year, and now we're here with seasons, and it's hot and it's cold, and that's good because now we're getting, that's where my research has been lately, is the hot and cold, and the benefits of extreme hot and extreme cold, and sauna and cryo and blah blah blah. So
yeah, absolutely, they definitely have their place for sure.
Yeah, lends itself to the health benefits, I suppose.
Well, I'm glad it's part of your quest and your why. I mean, I love what you do, man. It's highly respected, and I'm honored to share my voice and thoughts with the audience. All right.
Yeah, and we're just trying to figure it all out here. And as you know, when you start digging into cancer from anything outside of a conventional, just do this treatment and you'll be fine perspective, it gets pretty hairy pretty quick, and there's a lot of differing opinions out there, and a lot of dogma, and like you and I were just talking about before we started recording, and that's why I was really excited to get you on, because I've heard you interviewed a few times, and just your overall message of balance, and your whole protocol is the balance protocol. And just, I don't know, I feel like we kind of speak the same language in the fact that, all of these things are tools, not necessarily the way. And
Sure.
And that's what I'm really trying to figure out, what it is I mean by that when I say that, but I know that's what I think. But I know
Sure.
you've had a little while longer to think about this stuff than I have, and so yeah, I'm excited to get your take on
C,
cancer.
the big C, cancer. Ooh, right? Oh my goodness! And like it's one thing, like it's this one homogenized entity. I remember doing a lecture one time. I kind of cracked the audience up because I think, who was it for? I think it was for A4AMER, American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine. So I've lectured for them for many years. Bioidentical hormones and nutrition, clinical practice, and stem cell replacement therapy and stuff like that. But anyways, we're talking about cancer. I think it was on a panel, and somebody talked about it. And I use this example. I said, whenever people refer to cancer, they think of it like it's this one thing, like all cancers are the same. It's cancer. You have, the stamp. Oh, the scarlet letter, you with a big C, right? You have cancer, and then people hear about that and they flip out, the wheels fall off the wagon kind of a deal. I said, well, listen, I said cancer isn't like we can see it like under a microscope. We look down and we see these little cells looking up at us, flipping the bird and sticking their tongue out at us, right? I said that's not what cancer is, and because there was a time when somebody was in the audience and asked a question about it, and kind of got a little serious, and that shroud drops on someone when they share that's their story, which is critical to everything that I do. I think that's where the sweetness, compassion, and the love comes from is the patient's story. But anyways, I try to bring a little brevity back up, and I said, listen, that's not what cancer is. So we've got to stop thinking of it as like a single entity, right? It's more of a state. And, as the body giveth, it can taketh away. We just got to figure out what's in the damn way, right? What's missing, and we got to add, and, what's in the way, and we got to remove. It really is simple like that, so.
Yeah, and that's what I want to get to with you is what's missing, what do we need to remove, what's in the way, all that good stuff. But since you brought it up, this whole concept of what is cancer, and this kind of varies from person to person or from dogma to dogma. We have the cancer is a metabolic disease. We have cancer is a fungus. We have cancer is a virus or is caused by a virus, all that sort of thing. Cancer is an imbalance. What comes to your mind when I ask you, what is cancer?
Yeah, well, it's like asking me about, what's an automobile, right? There's all kinds of automobiles. A motorcycle is an automobile. A Vespa is an automobile. A Hummer, an 18-wheeler, a Prius, a Maserati, right? They're all automobiles, right? Technically helicopters, right? That's kind of what they are. So the point is that's what cancer is. That's what I think of it as, right? It's a big Roman numeral in the table of contents. Then you have to sub it all out, right? To the specific, A, and then little a, and then lowercase I, right? You gotta bring it all down. That's why there's different classifications. So when I think of cancer, I let people understand that all those things you just talked about, that it's all those things. Guess what? They're right. It can be all of those. That's the beautiful thing of it. That's the balanced understanding. Is we know that you can, cancer can be caused by one of five things. I'm getting ready to give them to you. This is it. There's only one of five, or one of, or multiple of these five things. What? I know, pretty big claim, right?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
I know, dramatic.
Actually, we're both standing, but.
I know, exactly. So the thing is number one, nutrient deficiencies. Okay. Second one, stressors. Third, microbes. Fourth, allergens. And five, toxins. One of those or multiple of those things is where all dysfunction comes from. Dare we call it disease, up to and including the big C. And I don't mean Cincinnati, right? It's like the country music song, the big D. I don't mean Dallas. I'm sorry. I'm a country boy. So you hear my twang, it comes out. I got to talk in pictures. It's the only way I can sort it all out. But anyways, the thing is that's it, right? Now, oftentimes it's more than one of those things. So when you have a situation where someone has a specific cancer, see, you won't hear me say has cancer, a specific cancer, and there's different ones have a different perpetuation to different things, depending upon, and I don't want to get too much into the differentiation because that leads down a rabbit hole I don't think we have time to go into. But there are soft masses, there are hard masses, there are certain tissues that, I'll go on an extreme, let's say like a teratoma, how the hell is a tumor growing a tooth, right? Some people literally have a cancerous tumor called a teratoma, and they'll find hair in it. They'll find a tooth, like literally not a tooth that left your mouth, you swallowed, and magically got delivered to this area. But literally your cells were triggered somehow to literally grow a tooth inside of a tumor. That's a true statement. So a teratoma is not the same thing, as, some other cancer, like say in the brain, right? So this is why we can't look at cancer as a single entity at all. It's more of its story. So you can have one or multiple of those five root causes, because that's what they are. It all comes down to one of the multiple of those fives. inducing a cellular dysfunction on a specific portion of an organelle within a cell that can cause this aberration, right? We talk about, like, for instance, I'm a big mitochondrial guy. So I think these 5 things affect the mitochondria and the mitochondrial origins of some cancers. But then sometimes there's a nuclear involvement, right? Well, one example is like people oftentimes think that the nucleus, is the control of the cell, and it's absolutely not. It's just where the blueprints are stored, right? The body has to go for that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, fundamentally, the work of Thomas Seyfried and a lot of the mitochondria metabolic guys, the argument has been framed. It's either the nucleus that leads to mitochondrial dysfunction, or it's always the mitochondrial dysfunction that leads to the nuclear dysfunction, the genome. Are you saying
a question of the latter? Okay. The nucleus doesn't initiate it. No, it doesn't.
So it never initiates it.
Nope. And here's the reason why. Because we can remove the nucleus from a cell and it'll continue to live.
Yeah.
It's not the brain. Like, literally, we'll denucleate it. Live for a long time. You remove the mitochondria, dead as a doornail. Okay. The other thing is everything is that cell's environment, right? See, all we do is we respond to what we're exposed to. I refer to that as what we negotiate or tolerate. I've kind of truncate that down to those couple of terms. So we know that microbes, viruses, because where do they come from, right? Out in the environment, come into the body. They can disrupt a cellular organelle, and therefore a cancer can develop. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so it came from outside of the body, environmental. We have so many controls from outside sources that affect what the cells do. So even the mitochondria and their own specific DNA, mitochondrial DNA, most people don't know that we have 2 sets of DNA. We have nuclear and we have mitochondria. Mitochondria we only get from our mom. That's why, moms and ladies are superior. They're just wonderful. I'm saying that because I have 3 princesses, 3 little girls. So, well, actually, one's not little anymore. She's getting ready to turn 18 here in about a month and a half. So,
wow.
But my point is that, you get it from your mama. So whenever I'm looking at particular cases, I'm very interested in that portion of their story. So mitochondrial theory in cancer is top of mind for me. But then the question is what affected the mitochondria to get them to do said downstream cascade?
Yeah.
Well, it's multiple of the 5 things that I just mentioned. Now, stressors, when I say stressors, I don't mean stress. Like, oh, I'm stressed about something. Like, oh, man, and I got this test coming. Okay? That doesn't cause, dysfunction to cause cancer. Okay? Some people might say that. They disagree, but that's okay. But stressors are outside energetic sources that have a profound impact on the body. And these would be things like air, water, light, sound, electromagnetic fields, right? And of course, food. So we know that certain frequencies of even light can damage cell tissues and cause an abnormal replication of cells, and then we have a cancer, right? Overexposure to UV, but UV, therefore, if it can do that, doesn't mean that it's bad by default. Most cancers are because people don't have enough UV, but that's another, we can get into that maybe later. But the thing is that you can have radio frequency, microwaves. We know that affects cells in a certain way and can cause them to deviate replication, therefore creating a cancer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Certain nutrient deficiencies can lend to poor replication and therefore leading to a cancer. So we've got, toxins. We know that heavy metals, right, and hexavalent chromium and fluoride and all kinds of other things and adjuvants and injectable materials that we give as medicine have causation to go into the body from an outside environment, right, and then lend to cells deviating the way that they multiply and therefore create a cancer. So the framework holds true that Those are the things that where it comes from. But then you have the idea of, well, why do some people have exposure to those things and don't have a cancer develop? And that's the big aha, because everybody is a category of one. You are a very unique symphony, a story. Every song that's ever been written always has the same notes. There's no like new notes, right? Like X sharp. There's right? We know that every good boy does fine, right? We know the scale. I don't know if you play an instrument or anything like that, but I tell people I play a mean triangle. Ding, ding, ding. You play an instrument? I go, I play a triangle. I play tuning forks. Maybe talk about that. Tuning forks on cancer. That's pretty awesome treatment. But anyways, the thing is that we all have a potential, and what we're made up from in our story through our entire life and our antecedents, the things that predispose us to certain things, sure, can they lend to a higher chance, probability, or risk is the word that we use, right? Increased risk of. How the heck did George Burns smoke a dozen cigars a day and live to be over 100? Well, I thought smoking causes cancer. Yeah. Right? I don't know. All I know is I'm not George Burns, and I'm not going to start smoking stogies, right? So the point is, where I'm going with this, is that it's context of the individual. That's it. Boom, thanks for coming. That's what it is. It's the unique biochemistry, right? We call that biochemical individuality plus genetic uniqueness within one's environment over time. That's the formula. What you have happen to you passively or actively, in other words, by choice, and also passively, because you don't know that most people don't know we're in a microwave planet. We're getting irradiated everywhere. We're getting sprayed with pesticides everywhere. Our food source, and all these things, those 5 things, they come in from the environment. But some of us have a genetic propensity to process some of those things out more efficiently than others. That's one part of the formula. But you might be able to do that and take that person and then move them up to, say, New York City, where the light cycles and circadian rhythm and all the clock genes that govern all of this stuff, by the way, is now different, and it will trigger a particular event. And then that environment will then also give us the last thing, it becomes a mediator. So we call antecedents, triggers, and mediators, right? So all of those things have to be looked at in the patient's unique story. Or you can just go, oh, I was diagnosed with cancer, okay? Let's call it, melanoma, right? And so then now the target is the melanoma, giving no insight as to how the hell the person got there. And a lot of times people don't understand. You might know, and your audience might know, but we look at cancers by we can determine when they started by their date, by their doubling life. I don't know if you're familiar, right? So we can kind of guess when they started.
Same as like a half-life going back for radio dating or something.
Exactly, like that. But it's so we can kind of age it. So what that tells us is cancer doesn't happen overnight. It's not because you were born to have cancer because it ran in your family. No, well, maybe if you're in the same environment, in the same colloquialisms, in the same dietary inputs, and you're making food like your mama made you, and then you do it, and then you eat that way, and whatever, and then you start replicating that, and that'll happen. The twin studies prove that it's not run in the family. It's not genetic. You're not built to manifest cancer. The genes have to be enacted upon. It's all in response to the environment. And that's what either makes or breaks it over time in that symphony of the person's biochemical individuality plus genetic uniqueness within their environment over time. That's where cancer comes from. So, that's my form. So that's where I'm at. So what that does is it opens us up to the biggest begs the question, what about all these methods of treating cancer? Well, again, hold on a second. Cancer doesn't exist. There's no such thing as cancer. It's like automobiles. It's overly generalized and it becomes very dogmatic. I think either not conspiracy, but I think it's perpetuated that people love to refer to it as that one thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's like saying sports. Get your kids in sports. We know all the big Well, what if it's mixed martial arts? Do you want little Timmy going in the octagon and getting a TBI? You see what I'm saying? I don't think that's very conducive to all the things that we want. A team and dedication and passion. But it's a sport. So, anyways, that we have to laugh at the terms is my point, Ryan. That's what I want people to first of all get a breath of fresh air on and hold on. Cancer is not a single entity in which we should struggle with. Right? It's an overly generalized thing. Go deeper into it, and then you get into the different names of the cancers. Well, that's only naming it, and generally with a little Latin term, so it sounds really official, real fancy, right? So then that kind of tells us what type of tumor it is and what location it is. That's how that works. Yep. Okay. Again, doesn't tell us how it got there. Doesn't tell us how long it's been there, right? It doesn't give all the individual insight of the patient's unique story and symphony, right? So my message to people who have the moniker, the stamp on the forehead of the scarlet letter of C, is you have to assess yourself, your environment, and your story, and then begin to crime scene investigation of how you did it, right? Not to get too macabre, but it's like an arson, right? We come in, house burnt down. That's cancer. We have house burned down. Okay. Okay, well, was it caused by arson or was it caused, by an electrical shortage? We can figure that out. Oh, look at there. It started right here in the middle of the living room in this pillow. Okay. All right, well, so there was probably somebody who did that. We'll call that cancer arson. Does that make you follow me on the analogy?
Yeah.
Then we need to go, well, who done it? And why would they do that? Are they trying to kill somebody's cat? Or are they trying to collect insurance? There's a whole bunch of reasons, right? And then it's like, well, how do we figure out, how they did? Well, they do a little swab. They do a little forensic evidence. They quantify. They take little things, send it off to the lab and go, oh, it was started with kerosene. So let's go look in the front yard and see look at there. They were dumb enough to leave the can. Oh, let's swab it and see if it's got fingerprints. So see how you have to go through this discovery process? Oh, no, it was lighter fluid. Well, let's go get all the video footage of all the stores around here. You could go as deep as you want on this silly analogy, but that's my point. You have to go and look for it, not just go, well, it doesn't matter. I've got insurance. Let's just tear it down. Let's poison, cut, and burn it some more, right? And then let's just, supposedly let the body rebuild it. You see what I'm saying? So that to me is the cancer industry, and that's what people tend to be the mode in. And my thoughts of where the origins of it comes from and where the focus really should be is how you got there. Because here's the thing, statistically, you're going to have a sequelae, another Latin for a term, right? You're going to have a repeat, right? It tends to come back. Oh, it's in remission. They have to use it. They don't like to use the other C word, the cure, right? It means, it's just in remission because they want to keep, when I say they, there are some powers that be. There's a medical industrial complex, not a big fan. But I'm not completely poo-pooed on them either, okay? My sister was married to a radiation oncologist, okay? 2-time breast cancer survivor, right? Oh, wow. Finally she got divorced and she was able to officially work with me. And now, it's a whole nother story. I won't start bragging, but it was my sis. She's awesome, right? So anyways, the point is that people are kept in that mindset, and it's a fear-based thing, and we have cancer, and the narrative out there is absolutely deafeningly loud. It prevails. People are like, oh man, and then what ends up happening is then all the other people who love that person start leveraging their emotional component into it, right? And going, no, you got to go do chemo. You have to do all this. We love you so much. Come on, mom. You got bone cancer. You got to go do all this stuff. Don't be trying to do all these things, health and diet and all that. That's all quack, right? That's all snake oil. None of that matters, and so then that kind of stuff happens. So the last I was sharing you with that was there's the mind portion of it. That is that's one of the stressors, right? How your brain assigns what it is, it will follow 100%. There's no question on that. I mean, we know you can get so nervous that, guys, but it's funny, talk ladies. So worried that we missed our period, we'll miss our period, right? We're so worried about our performance issues and we can't get there. If we would just stop thinking, it's amazing how the body responds to what our brain is thinking. So when you start fearing and worrying and buying into that narrative of the big C and that it's cancer, that locks you in. It defaults you from it. It literally opts you out for so many divinely created amazing protectionisms that are in the body to be able to resolve said thing. Does that make sense? So the mind part is in there too. So I wanted to put that all in that same kind of mindset to answer your where do I think? Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And I'm left with about a million different questions to in response to
Well,
everything you just said. So I suppose, did you want to, I was trying to think if you were in the middle of kind of elaborating on all of your different 5 things. Was there any more kind of explanation of the 5 different triggers that that needed to be?
It could be. Yeah, so I'll revisit that a little bit. So, when you look at nutrient deficiencies, stressors, microbes, allergens, and toxins, so it's a good way to divide them out because they're different. They have different characteristics. So when you don't have nutrients, whether it be vitamins, minerals, enzymes that are made from those, amino acids, fatty acids, those will disrupt stuff, right? So if you're, let's go for fatty acids, right? So we know that lipids make up our membranes. Okay. And the membranes is what receives the information or the signals from the outside. That's the true brain of the cell, the membrane, right? So your membrane is comprised of layers of different types of fat, like, not get too deep, but sterol heads, fatty acids in the middle, and there's all kinds of proteins sticking through, okay? All these antennas. Well, what your membranes are made up of is a result from your dietary intake. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. A lot of times people will go, well, the cool thing to do today is to eat paleo or ancestral. So then, of course, that's going to be a diet high in saturated fats, high sterols. For some people, absolutely the best diet for them based upon their status. Sometimes I assign that type of a dietary intervention for some people. Some people, it's just the opposite. They need to be vegan. And you don't always have the same diet either. People go, well, I'm eating this way and it worked for me and I feel better and I did this. Therefore, all other Homo sapiens should eat this way too, living vicariously through everybody else. And then the other people is you'll have, vegans and plant-based and different continuums and, the Dougal, everybody starts. And, and all the people that was wonderful for. Well, that's right. It proves my postulate that everybody has a uniqueness. The quest is, how do you find out which one you are? How do you find out where you are in a given moment? That's the quest. Certain cancers have a disposition, a commonality to manifest in hypopermeable membrane, high sterol saturated fat membranes. Others manifest in high omega-6 inflammatory non-saturated or polyunsaturated fats. What tumor, if you will, or what growth happens has a lot to do, not everything, but a lot to do with the actual physical composition of the terrain that it's occurring in. That came from diet. Does that make sense? You follow me on that? So nutrients of, say, for instance, fatty acids of a certain one can precipitate as a causative factor nutrient deficiency, therefore lending to a state of a particular cancer. See how that works? So that's nutrient deficiencies. Stressors, this is going to come from things like light from the environment and signaling circadian rhythm. It can come from microwaves and radio frequency, from Wi-Fi devices and all the smart devices and everything like that. Cell phones, holding them up against your head and things. That's a stressor on your body. Low frequency infrasound from fans and wind turbines and things like that can disrupt the cells by vibrating that certain thing, which predisposes you to tumoral growth over time. Microbes, this is bacteria, fungus, virus. Of course, people say, well, everybody has fungus. That causes cancer. That's not true at all. Not true at all. Sometimes there's not a damn fungal component in the least. And initially, you get into a weakened state, and then opportunistic microbes come into play, and then raise their head, and they go, "Oh, see, it was that." That's not the case. It's like when the grass dies off in front of a house, everybody goes, "Oh man, that house is falling apart." Okay, so no, you put the grass back, go, "Oh, it's a beautiful house." So anyway, and that's how neighborhoods go to hell, right? People just stop caring for the terrain, and then that's when the squatters come in and the drug dealers, and bad things happen, right? It wasn't, well, drug dealers killed all the grass. Okay, so microbes, they come into play, right? Then allergens, that's loss of tolerance to the environment. If you could keep putting taxation on a weakened system of having to deal with certain molecules that the body's lost tolerance or immunocompetency to, that cell's gonna go, oh, I give up. Damn it. All right, you're gonna keep treating like that? Bang. And then no, so allergens can do it. Same thing for toxins. No one needs to be doing shots of Roundup, glyphosate. We don't just, okay, I get it, right? But the same things when it comes to all kinds of minerals, like, well, selenium is very anti-cancer, anti-tumoral mineral, but not if it's sodium selenite, like in a Centrum vitamin from ground up rocks, because it's a source of selenium, but it's a selenium that, was shown to cause prostate cancer. So people go, oh, well, selenium, supplementation causes prostate cancer. Well, hold on a minute. What selenium? Just like what cancer, what automobile? The last name of the nutrient determines it. Like, say, a seleniomethionine, like it is in plants. Selenium bound to an amino acid methionine. Well, that's actually anti-tumoral. So it's not selenium. See where I'm going with that? So it's the toxins, it's the microbes, it's the allergens, it's the stressors, it's the nutrients. And you just don't pick one that you resonate with. You have to address all of them, whether you undergo conventional treatment or not. Does that make sense?
It does.
So when you start looking at things from a framework, it opens up your mind. And that's what I ask people to do, is look at themselves under a different framework and a uniqueness. We share all the same genes. We all have the same number of bones, same number of muscles, but we're entirely different. Not every Ryan is you, right? I know some Ryans that are not dashingly handsome like you, right? So, I mean, it's no joke. I actually have this colleague. I'm like, we always pick on him. But the thing, I know, I'm crazy. But the thing about it is, that's what I'm trying to say, is I want people to know that the reason why they get lost, their oxes in the mire, is because they've obfuscated themselves and they're treating something that's not them, at least that's not the one part of them. And this is why all these different methods and gurus and approaches have premise. Right? We were talking before, like you've got the keto, idea. Well, because all cancers are obligate glucose metabolizers. So therefore, if we take away that fuel substrate and then give them ketones and it's that ain't always the case. I've been doing this for 22 years. And I'm going to tell you right now, this whole new thing with ketos, it's conflated because it's very marketable. It's the new spin. Like, how many times does Coca-Cola have to change its motto? Right? Remember, it used to be, what is it now, by the way?
We have
Coke and a smile. Save the world, give them a Coke. Right? It all keeps changing. So now in the world, it's got keto and intermittent fasting. But they all miss quantifying the patient. How do they know that they can even put on that shoe, much less their size? Right? Same thing when it comes to the Gersh method or any of these other ones that are out there in these methods. They're treating cancer. They're not treating the person. They don't start with a comprehensive laboratory assessment of what systems are offline and need to be supported. You see the difference? So no matter what method is out there, I don't poo-poo any of them. They're all tools. But before you go fixing the car, you better figure out, do you need the metric or do you need the standard toolbox? Do you need, what are we working with here? What system? Does that make sense? So that's the ramble, is, when it comes down to it, look at it from an origin source, from a uniqueness, and then determine where is it manifesting in your system's biology. And then that will give you clues into what methods may or may not be appropriate for you. And if they're all appropriate, what order in which to approach them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So I guess that leads me to just, if you are working with someone with cancer and trying to diagnose these issues and where it all came from and that sort of thing. I mean, what specific questions are you asking, and what tools, analytical tools are you using to try to tease out some of this stuff?
Well, that's a great question, because I never treat cancer. I treat patients. So I don't care if you're coming to me for assistance with chronic migraines, toenail fungus, diagnosis of breast cancer, allergies, chronic fatigue syndrome, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, alopecia. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. I'm gonna put your body on the diagnostic machine, and I'm gonna find out what it is, right? I mean, there's certain things that are obvious, like, oh, well, there was, you got hit in an accident. That's probably why the alternator broke, right? That kind of a thing, using an example. So in other words, you want to do a full systems biology workup. You want to assess all systems. But first, you have to have a retelling of the patient's story. You got to listen to the patient, and they will give you the diagnosis, said Sir William Osler, the father of modern medicine, right? That's what it is. Listen to the patient, and they'll give you the diagnoses. That's profound. So you don't go, well, okay, what's your history of present illness and what's your family history? And okay, and then we did this quick little scan and give you this contrast dye. Oh, yep, there's a tumor. And now let's treat that. That's about how quick it goes. Most people meet somebody, talk to them for maybe 20 minutes before they're ready to go into treatment, to treat this thing that, as you know, I don't think exists, not at least in the way we consider it, right? And I mean, we make a life-changing decision in a matter of minutes. Isn't that nuts? It's unbelievable. Most people they meet their surgeon just before they go into anesthesia.
Yeah.
Going, what? Come on, man. So what you got to do is you got to have a clinician who will retell your story with you, become your autobiographer, and know about your lifestyle, your environment, and all the things that contributed to you. So you got to first seek the patient's story. So that's the first thing to start unfolding it. You got to know about who you're working with, where they live, how they live. There's a whole lot to it. Assessing their environment, right? What are they around? What are their habits? And getting to all the things that contribute to it or that are risk factors, not just whatever's cool and hip or sounded really cool, from one of the blog, gurus, right? Because then they can give you a supplement for it. Oh, MTHFR. So that means your genes. Anyways. So the thing about it is you got to start with the patient's unique story. Then number two, then you need to assess systems at least on an entry level. You need to find out, like for instance, we talk about mitochondrial involvement. Well, take a look at your mitochondrial metabolites. Some people don't know there's even mitochondrial metabolites. Well, yeah, you can get them in your pee. Real simple test, cheap. Pee in a cup, and we look at the markers of the whole, citric acid cycle and what's going on, and we can postulate with electron chain transport and what fuels that your body's metabolically right now using and how they're using it. We can tell that from your urine. It's amazing. Just like, when a new baby's born, they give you a little heel stick and they do the PKU test to see if they can process phenylalanine. Well, that's an organic acid. There's a whole bunch of organic acids that are revealing of what metabolic pathways are broken or deficient or in excess. It's all kinds. So something like that, but that never happens in quote, cancer care. But even in their journals, they know there's a mitochondrial involvement, but they're not even assessing the mitochondria. But then here's the thing, though. Let's say you have your fumarate to malate junction of the citric. I'm just being funny for these are true numbers, compounds. If that jump, you have deficient succinate, but then you have excess of malate. Well, that can tell you something that's happening in the mitochondria, but that doesn't tell you why. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Same thing when it comes to, like, say you have plenty of citric acid, but not enough, isocitric. There's a huge amount of this one, then a drop off of here. So there's like a dam. Well, we know that from that step to the next step metabolically within the mitochondria requires, say, iron and glutathione. So if you have an iron imbalance and you have a glutathione deficiency, that can cause that mitochondrial step to be broken, which over time can lead to its dysfunction within that cell, within that tissue, which can cause it to do what? Abnormally replicate itself. That's how damn easy it is. It's the who. You got to keep going deep, 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 right? But then who did that? Well, you could, a toxic metal could have done it. A microbe, a bacteria, a virus, radio frequency could cause that nutrient to be missing. Nutrient deficiency, eating a particular diet that's low in, say, B2 or B1 that's needed for that particular step. You see what I'm saying? So I don't care what we call it downstream, how it's manifesting. I am an upstreamist. You got to go upstream, no matter what it's called down there in that particular person. The same things that can lend to cancer for one person can be the exact same things in relative, fashion that causes cardiovascular disease in another. That's why they're the two leading causes. And generally, you kind of pick one path. We don't have a whole bunch of heart attack people having cancer. We don't have a bunch of whole hearts. Isn't that interesting? So you kind of pick your fate of the two. Mm. But medicine knows that 85% of those are lifestyle, diet, and environment. 85%. But they give no teaching in that, much less prevention. And they're all chronic. They happen over time. So that's what's awesome. You got time. Do stuff now, right? So that's where it comes from. These are the origins of it. You got to go just deeper, and no matter what it's called, get down and assess all the systems. So that's one test to answer your question. There's urine, but you should also assess fatty acid status, amino acid status, neurotransmitters. Everybody goes, oh, well, all disease begins in the gut. That sounds romantic and fun to say, but that's not true at all. Okay, your inner tube is influenced by what? Things that come into it from the environment. So environment is the root of all. That's where all the 5 come into play. They come from the outside, which is really cool. You know why? Because that now means you have control. It's not your destiny. Not at all. You can make the choices, but the question is, do you know? A lot of people just are unaware. They're like, oh, well, nothing's wrong with it. I got this new dual band router. Yeah. Right? I got all these LED bulbs, and they're energy efficient, and they're good for the planet. But people don't realize that light spectrum through your eye throws off all your metabolism, jacks up your clock genes, and the clock genes are like the Lord of the Rings, right? They're the one gene to rule them all, right? That's governed by light. And then you got the flicker from that LED, on our power grid here in the States. Pop, 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 pop. You can't see it, but believe me, your body, your brain, and your metabolism knows it. And then that now affects, from an outside stimuli, a cascade of things, the different systems of the body. So part of the patient's story is you got to say, tell me about your lighting. How long are you in those lights? Where are you around? Does that make sense? Oh, yeah. Is it a house? Is it an old knob and tube? Because then that's electrical fields and magnetic fields coming into the environment, increasing your body voltage. The whole body is electric, right? We all run on DC current. And if you're in a high AC body voltage field and sleeping in that through the night, this has just recently happened with a patient of mine, Kathy, right? I went and did a site assessment for her because she happened to be local. And she started having problems, so she had her chair. She had her place where she was comfortable watching TV underneath a ceiling fan, with LED bulbs, with power cords running underneath her to fuel her laptop and her iPad. So I went in there with my meters, and she was in a magnetic field of 6 milligauss all the time. Her body voltage was upwards of 4 to 5 volts, right? And her cells are sitting in that. No wonder she had this big-ass tumor in her belly. Now, here's the wonderful thing, okay? So we removed that stuff and sent her up to relatives, because you got to have a change of environment, sent her up to the mountains of North Carolina, sit in some streams, get a lot of sunshine, and get to altitude. And she comes back, and guess what? Tumor starts shrinking just from little changes alone. So the body responds, right? So anyways, there's all kinds of stuff like that. So it's not the gut, it's the environment, and then you have to assess that through the patient's story and back it up with clinical evidence. That's it. So that's some of the things that I do. There's a lot more. We have a whole battery of tests. People say, well, we did tests, or I did blood work. People say, I did some blood work, assuming that was it. Well, the blood work came back fine. Well, then how the hell do you have, a tumor in your thyroid. It does always match up. That's because you got to look deeper. And the thing is you just don't go do, $20,000 worth of diagnostic tests either, just to check everything, So I don't want my message to be that either. There's certain places to start and then go from there, work foundationally, and then work your way up. So that's what I would do. That's how I work with patients. Is I don't treat cancer. I treat them. I approach an assessment, whether I'm going after any of those name it, blame it, claim it, tame it games.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny you mentioned the blood work. That's my right before my son was diagnosed. With stage 4 neuroblastoma, huge tumor in the spine, couple secondary tumors that all metastasized into the bones. They did an X-ray and took some blood work, and both of those things were fine. And they sent us home and said, come back in 6 weeks. Even though your son has a big lump sticking out of his back, that's probably not that.
I know, and I'm glad we can laugh together on it because some people would just get busted up about it. Well, and that's just it. My message for people is to demand a higher level of healthcare from your clinicians. It's your damn body. You got to pay for it. And there's no lab coat and stethoscope person that's going to sit there and hold you at night. And I don't know too many doctors that have showed up at the funeral either.
No.
So that's the damn brutal truth of it. So I don't want people to get comfortable in what they're told in these diagnostics and assuming it, right? But they go, well, where do we learn? Well, then you start banging it, Dr. Googling it, and oh boy, is that a toughie. There's no shortage of information out there. No. But what they're missing is context, your context, your son's context, you see? So there's no simple answer to that. But when I hear those stories, I go, well, that's testament to don't get comfortable with things like that. Isn't it amazing? 6 weeks. You know why it's 6 weeks, by the way?
Yeah, well, it lasted 6 minutes for us, and we were right back on the phone saying, no, we need to see somebody else. But no, yeah, right. What's the 6 weeks?
Because most of the decisions being made are based upon reimbursement from a third party. And they can't see you sooner than that. Mm. That's why. That's the dirty ass secret, pardon my French. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, they're going to look and see what's covered. They're going to want to know. And that paperwork that you're filling out when you first get there, history of present illness, family history, insurance coverage, and who you think, let me get a copy of your card. Believe you me, make no mistake about it. They're determining the course of care based upon financial interest. That's true. That's a fact. Okay? We have departments, we have people that we hire to do exactly that. So that's the other thing I want people to understand. As soon as you start wanting some other person to pay for it, that's your first trap right there. Because then when you submit to that, then they got you. Right? Then they get to determine. So one of my other things is of course, demanding a higher level of healthcare from people, but I want you to also realize that you are the boss. Nobody else. You do not have to do a doggone thing. And you get the final say. That's it. People, all the fears. That's what all this is. That whole cancer industry is just fear-based. It's unbelievably fear-based.
Yeah.
If fear is, that's just absence of information. You got information, you're not scared. Like, oh, totally get it.
So, it makes total sense. And I don't always ask everyone about this, but I would be curious to get your thoughts because you're a well-rounded gentleman. Do you have any thoughts on childhood cancer in particular when it comes to I don't know, cause or how you would look at it differently than an adult? Yeah, it sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks.
Sure. Well, let's go back to let's hold me to my own prattlings, right? Okay, so what happens is the child is born, but it was in an environment for a while. It was already in an environment. It was in mom's tummy. It got everything that you got. One cell from dad. That's it. Thanks, Pops. Okay, Mom, you get everything else. Then now you're in there for 9 months. Okay, now in that environment, we get exposed to all kinds of things. Mom's nutrient status, mom's stressors, mom's microbes, mom's allergens, and mom's toxins. What? There you go. Now you come out. Now we're exposed to those same 5 things in a very short period of time, up to and including all the lovely idiopathic contributions from, those places we call hospitals, right? We all know they're petri dishes. They're dirty as hell, okay? None of them have incandescent lights. None of them have solariums anymore. There's no natural light coming in there. That's why y'all jaundice here. Let's go stick you under this light. They would just, you see what I'm saying? So it starts from the very beginning. The light to boom, the clock genes. I already told you, right? That starts influencing it immediately. Then how you feed the baby. What are they given? Oh, well, mom doesn't want to breastfeed. Well, breastfeed just a little bit, can't get enough. Oh my God, I feel over here. Let's give it some Enfamil. Let's give it some of that, that fake food, from like the Matrix, the gruel, but in liquid form. And then we pump that into the baby, right? And then I'm fitting to go there. Ready? Then somebody tells you, oh, well, we got to prevent diseases, infectious diseases. So we're going to start pumping your kid with all kinds of injectable cocktails, right? With all kinds of things. Do I have to say the V word, right? So all the vaccine cocktails. There you go. It's absolutely true. See, the difference is you got to go and listen to all sides and understand from this different perspective, this lens or prism that I'm trying to get people to look through differently. And are they of themselves the agent? Well, of course not, because here, George Burns, right? Well, why are all these other kids who get all the shots, they don't have cancer at all? Great question, right? Well, there you have it. Because they're not you. They're not your kid. They're not that symphony. You see? So the key is differentiation and recognizing how special you are. You got to start being more self-centered. It's okay. So that's where childhood cancers come from. Then you get into the environment, more of things that they eat, fields of stressors that they're in, microbes. You just keep going back through that. That's what it is, through their biochemical individuality and their genetic uniqueness in their environment over time. That's where it comes from, you see? So what you want to do is ask the 2 questions. What do we got to add? What do we got to remove? That's what you want. That's what you got to be thinking of. I am not a proponent of vaccines at all. Zero. For no kids. No how, no way. I have a standing wager, literally. Okay, I have $250,000 sitting in a bank account, and I will give it to anyone from hearing my voice. If you give me one, I just want one. I'm gonna talk real close to the microphone. Ready? I just want one. Okay, one randomized controlled trial that proves that our current vaccine schedule is proven both safe and effective. Just give me one. If you can find one, I'll give you $250,000. Straight up. You'll find that. It's not there. So okay, gotcha. Now we can have all the philosophy things and all the other kind of debates that gets really heated on that. Okay, whatever. But let's just get to that. Okay, so we don't have that they're safe and effective, period. So that's that. Autism or not, whatever. But here's the thing. We do know that things that are within them can and do cause certain things. Not always. Okay, I was vaccinated as a kid for some things. Other things turned out I wasn't. Schedule was different 45 years ago. But thank goodness I didn't have that little circle, the little pokes. Remember that one? All you folks, I came out just past when they started doing that barbaric, the mother, brothers, and sisters, they all have that little burn on. Anyways, so the point is I did actually have a German measles. I was actually in an incubator when I was a kid. It was a fun story. But anyway, anyways, so the point is so it's not everybody. So you'll never catch me being dogmatic or homogenized or one size fits all. I say everybody's unique, and the quest is for you to retell that story, find out where you are, and make the adjustments, and realize it's not static. Same thing for kids. Okay, that's what it is. I don't know. But here's the thing, as soon as we start putting that quest into play, you get information, and with information you become culpable. No one wants to say, like I do a lot of work with the military, special forces and stuff like that as a philanthropy. And one of my patients we discovered what was going on, he ended up blowing the cover off of the level of heavy metals that are in these explosive houses that they train in, like up in, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
And as soon as we brought that, to command, of course, guess what happens? That's amazing. They decided to schedule a teardown of that entire. It's pretty funny. So I'm not going to get into all that because I try not to get too controversial. But the point is this. In other words, when you start getting information out there, it makes people culpable. Well, then that changes things. And then parents, we don't want to feel like we contributed to it, right? We don't want to. But little Johnny wants to play on his iPad. He's got cancer. Poor guy's going through chemo. How can we take his iPad away? So we got to have the Wi-Fi, and we have to have that big artificial blue light bomb in his eyeballs, because poor guy. I mean, you see the game. We've played that. We're dads. We get it. Okay, so it's not easy, man. And I don't have all the answers, but I have a way to find the answers, and that's what I try to encourage people to find. And coming to podcasts like yours and having these different discussions and hearing everybody's different points of view and stuff like that. But then ultimately, again, you have to find out how it applies to you and your child specifically. And how did they come into that continuum? What made their symphony? And then correct what's out of tune, right? What's that one little key? My wife plays the saxophone, right? And just one little pad wore out. And that it was off from being able to make beautiful notes. And then you need to play and then like when you get to that one part of the song, like, it's just a little bit off, right? You tune it back in, and then there you go. Okay, so I talk in these things, and hopefully this makes sense to your audience. I appreciate you letting me just kind of dissertate a little bit, but it's a lot, man. It's a lot, and my heart goes out to them. I mean, there's nothing worse than sick kids and stuff like that, or parents losing a child. I mean, we oftentimes say that, and then of course kids will go, it's not as bad as if I lost you, mom or dad. You know what I mean? So we all kind of have that position. But that's what I think of childhood cancers. I think it sucks, but it has origins just like all the rest of diseases that I just mentioned to you. Because cancer ain't no different. It's got some subtle differences. Let me just, not be dogmatic, right?
Yeah.
So.
No, and I'm glad you brought up the iPad, all that good stuff, because that's what we try to get parents to do, is not think of you're not depriving your kid, you're providing your kid with health and stuff that's not going to zap themselves further.
Cancers before we had digital devices, so they're not the single causative factor. You see what I'm saying? So that's the whole deal. Yeah. But it's the mix, it's the formula, the recipe, the symphony, all those things coming together. But yeah, when you understand the physiological consequences, impact of a wider range of things, you really become enlightened, and they start mixing. I like to use examples. I'll give you one example. Like, for instance, there's a compound out there called sodium benzoate. It's a preservative. It's all over the place. It's actually made by fermenting plant matter, and then we harvest it. Your body actually makes benzoate too, by the way. It's a byproduct of microbial processes. The body actually makes a certain amount of it. Okay, but sodium benzoate in and of itself is pretty inert. But when it becomes benzene, then it's a carcinogen. Well, how the hell do we get from sodium benzoate to benzene? Well, you can mix it with another byproduct of bacterial fermentation called citric acid. So you take a little bit of sodium benzoate to preserve the soda pop, and you put a little citric acid in it so it's nice and tangy and palatable. And then now you put it in fluid, right? And then you add heat, like, on the back of a truck, and it makes benzene. You just made a little chemistry in a can. And so people were, so that's one place. So excessive benzene over time in the right symphony can lend to a cancer. Right? So people say, well, that's why Coca-Cola causes cancer. Well, you know what I'm saying? I'm not beating on Coca-Cola. But, the key here is to understand that there's all kinds of little chemistries like that. Right? You bring them together, and it's different. When you take different substances, iPads and Wi-Fi, light spectrum through the eyeball, radio frequency, put them together into a weakened system, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a different mix. So you need to learn about as many of those as you possibly can. That's my example, right?
It's a good example. Good example.
What fun for the whole family.
So I got two questions that I always ask everyone that comes on the show, and we'll get to those in just a second, I suppose. But before we got to that and wrapped up, speaking of dogmas, you and I were talking before, just in the two quintessential, at least right now, dogmas in cancer is kind of the Gerson side of things and the keto side of things. And
Sure.
you just had some interesting things to say, and that's kind of like, I know both sides are trying to get me to like pick a side right now and that sort of thing. And it's just recreate what you were telling me on your thoughts between that debate as it applies to cancer.
Sure.
Before we started recording, I think that would be valuable for a lot of folks.
Well, first of all, you can tell them to kiss it because no one has to make a decision. You don't have to pick either side. Pick your side. Say, listen, they're both there. It's like, do I use a spoon or a fork? I mean, really? I mean, some people get busted up, if they see you use the wrong utensil. You know. So it's silly. Anybody who forces you to make a decision is only doing it for one reason only, and that's for their selfish purposes. They want to get someone like you who has a voice in an audience like you to be on their team so they can leverage your power and influence. So let me just put that out there right there. You ain't got to choose. So if they ever hear this, you can tell them that Dr. Beck is of the opinion that they can kiss it. No, that's not it. The only person you can choose is you, and not everybody needs the same thing. So that's the first premise. Let me just be clear about that. So keto versus, Gersh, I just call them Gersh. So again, I already talked about keto a little bit. Keto's not for everybody. You can put ketones into somebody, okay, and they're not going to do squat in certain metabolic cases. I know this because I test all my patients' metabolics as a matter of empirical findings, period. There's a lot of people. A lot of people have tons of ketones too. I wish I would have prepared. I'd do a little side-by-side comparison, okay? There are some people that already have excess of ketones because of what their mitochondria are doing, but they have those ketones plus excessive pyruvate and lactate, which puts them into what's something called slow oxidation, okay? So anyways, the point is you can take exogenous ketones and you're really not going to hurt anybody, so it's really kind of benign. But to say that you do put them in there that's going to be beneficial by default is absolutely ridiculous. It's not true at all, okay? It's part of a marketing narrative. Now, having said that, inducing someone into a state of nutritional ketosis, thereby removing carbohydrate, keeping proteins, which can turn into gluconeogenesis, to a lower level, so that way we can also keep the glucose production down. Therefore, the body will respond in the presence of increased intake of dietary fat will produce ketones. Well, guess what? That eating, see, environmental input, air, water, light, sound, EMF, food, okay, because that's not a diet that you can do in the absence of knowing the diet. It doesn't really happen in nature. Does that make sense? Yeah. It's a clinical method that is useful in certain situations, right? In certain times, I'll put myself in nutritional ketosis to expose myself to other therapies, right? And other patients. So I'm not saying it's not a tool in the toolbox. Remember that. But the journey to take somebody to devoid of carbohydrate, just enough proteins to get by, and then increase dietary fat works upon a presupposition that the body has the metabolic and digestive capacity to take on an increased hyperlipid load. You're assuming that the liver can do the work by forcing it into this. That's a big fat matzo ball floating out there. What if you have a weakened patient? Did you test the status of their hepatic pathways and liver capacity? Of course you don't. You just tell people to eat that way because studies have shown Okay, great. Were you in that study? Was that, you see what I'm saying? And well, they were all cancer. Okay, well, great. Well, where were they living? Were they near the equator? Did they have the same light cycle as you? Or were they people up in Canada, Scandinavia, or New York City? You didn't qualify as one of the people in that study that proved ketones did that. You follow me? Savvy, right? It doesn't match. So that's what I think about the ketone hypothesis. Yes, it has premise. Yes, I use it clinically, but you have to match it up and size it, quantify it to the specific case of the patient. Not just by default that it does what it does. The body is divinely created and highly intelligent. I mean, boy, does it give us get out of jail free cards all the flipping time. But here's the deal, though. You start forcing ketones into a person to be produced, and all the systems thereto appertaining, you're assuming that they're strong enough to take on that new metabolic pathway load, are you not? Yeah, okay. Not going to happen. Okay, especially if it was induced by vaccine cocktails in a young person, and then you try to force them into that. Good, yeah. Okay, have fun with that. Because guess what? Molybdenum, lead, cadmium, antimony, mercury, all those things that are in those cocktails, they literally shut down the steps at the citric acid cycles. You now take it out of its metabolism and force the production of ketone bodies by increased fat in that young person who has a heavy metal induced deficiency in mitochondria. What do you think that's going to do? It's like putting me in a NASCAR. That's not a good idea. I'm gonna put it into the wall. Okay. But the car has every ability and potential to do it. I'm just gonna run it. Okay, so that's what I think about keto. Let's go to Kirsch. Same thing. If food items have an effect, if they have a component of affecting the body in a certain way, for benefit, they therefore by default can be detrimental. Okay? I have seen patients, listen, not everybody can have that much damn carrot juice and that many coffee enemas. Okay? Because again, you're presupposing that the certain biochemical individuality of the patient's status right now can handle that upheaval of putting a lovely organic burnt Arabica bean infusion coffee in the rectum. You with me on that? I mean, what a big they're not quantifying. They're not assessing biological terrain or biochemical individuality status. You're just putting it there and assuming their body is just going to do what it's supposed to do because this worked. No. Same thing like with acupuncture. Some people that their neuralgia so bad, I'm not sticking a needle in them. You kidding me? I get punched out. But it does. You see, so you can't go on the presupposed benefit of the intervention for everybody. And again, that premise, that protocol, that approach has a history, right? So did Ravici's work. So did Reams's work. So did Kellogg's work. So did Watson's work. So did Riddick's work. So did Matthias Rath, who I train with. So does Jensen. All these people had protocols and methods, Gershon included. Okay? But here's the deal. You got to quantify the patient. And that's where some of them did great and some of them missed. What was the differentiating factor? You know what it was? The uniqueness of the patient. That's why, I mean, humbly I say that I'm always going to win because I let the patient dictate it. I listen to the patient and they'll give me the diagnosis. And then we adjust based upon their unique story. Not homogenized, not cattle call, not just run-of-the-mill stuff, and not specific to one subset of a disease downstream manifestation. You cover all systems. You want to go over, and that's what my balanced protocol is. I call it the 2-3-5-8 framework, right? The 2 questions, what do we got to add? What do we got to take away? The 3 stands for the 3 phases: nourish, balance, purify. A lot of times people with cancer, with the diagnosis cancer, with the rubber stamp, they go, well, I need to detox. Well, you very well may. Coffee enemas, chlorella, dosing, natural laetrile, eat on some apricot pits, black cumin seed oil, get it. Okay, there's all kinds out there. There's entire websites dedicated to all of these alternative therapies. I'm not an alternative therapy doctor. But anyways, my point is you don't detox a weakened person. Oh, no, you don't. My mother was an alcoholic. Okay, we don't take her from, you got to quit. Boom, there's no weaning off. Okay, I'm a gallon of wine a day, and then I'm gonna go to 2 quarts, and you know what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that. My point is this: she was also a type 1 diabetic. Doctors killed her pancreas with a shot of steroid. Okay, she had a nasal infection. They thought it was bacterial. Turned out to be fungal. They gave her a big old shot of prednisone, put her into a coma. When she comes out, her pancreas is dead. Okay, so for the whole life, and she was a 2-pack-a-day smoker, and she was an alcoholic, right? How the hell did I turn out so good with it being born to a mom who was an alcoholic smoker, right? Well, my mom did tell me she stopped while I was born. That was really pretty cool. I said, hey, thanks, Mom. Well, hey, how about you love yourself as much as you love me in there? That was pretty cool. So let's get back to you. I love my mom. She's who I am today. But anyways, that particular story. So my point where I'm tying this back around is is that you got to realize that in people's best efforts, they'll do things thinking that it's going to be beneficial without any context of their self, right? The doctors didn't know the differentiation between which microbe it was, right? Okay, same thing when it comes to people, when it comes to cancers or these different protocols, okay? Not everybody's body can handle it. So you can't go detoxing from the very beginning. When you start pulling things out of storage and dumping it into circulation, your body now has to deal with it. It's actually going from what we call phase 1 to intermediate metabolites to phase 2 detoxification systems. You're better to have just left it where it was. The body knew to stick it there and leave it alone. You start trying to pull it out and chelate it and detoxing, and you don't know what your body's ability to get rid of it is. You just made it 10 times more reactive and damaging to the body. It's like with cancer cells. When we kill them off, it's not the cancer cells. You know the biggest problem is what are you going to do with all those dead cancer cells? Yeah. They are highly toxic. They're not as toxic if you just let them there. It's the die-off. See? Makes the same point. So if you start sticking stuff up your butt, protocols, detox protocols prior to nourishing first, build up the person, get their environment, what the air they breathe, the water they drink, the food they eat, the sound they listen to, the EMF that's around them, the light, nourish them first, build up a strong patient. Then balance out the systems, then purify. There's an order, not just go straight to detox. Okay, so 2, 3, 5, 8, 2 questions, 3 phases, 5, I cover those 5 causes. The 8 are the 8 systems. First one is the key, number 1 is the environmental inputs that we just talked about. Okay, number 2, GI, absorption, elimination. Number 3, mindset, mentally. It's the biology of belief. Okay, people can laugh, pray, meditate, and believe their way out of a tumor. Not everybody, but it's a fact. Laying on of hands, there's all kinds of stuff that we just can't explain. Spontaneous remission. Okay, whatever. It's a component. It's not completely foreign idea. Number 4, building the immune system and clearing inflammation directly. What is inflammation? Loss of tolerance. It's another term like automobile or cancer. Inflammation. What pathway of inflammation? Then we move on to structural. We work on the physical structure of the body. Muscles, bones, ligaments, tendons, but also the membrane and the structure of the walls of mitochondrial membrane. So that covers there. Then you move on to oxidative stress and energy production. Then you move on to hormones and neurotransmitters. And then lastly, biotransformation and detoxification systems. That's the 8. There's 8 systems. 2 questions, 3 phases, 5 causes, 8 systems. I don't care if it's migraines, cancer, toenail fungus, or a bad attitude. You work through that framework. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that's what I think of those 2 methods. They're missing the quantification and covering the whole body, not just dividing it up into one particular system. Colon cancer. So now all the attention's in the colon. Well, hold on a second. It eats from the same refrigerator and poops in the same toilet as your brain, your nose, your eyelids, and your pinky toe. Right? So don't just stop and look at the colon. Don't treat the colon. Don't just treat the colon cancer. It's everywhere. We know, and if you ignore it long enough, what does it do? It upregulates collagenase, rips through the walls, and it now travels, right? It metastasizes. Amazing. So it's all connected. So that's what I think of those methods, and you don't have to choose. little question, long answer.
It was a beautiful answer, and I'm sure glad I asked.
Nice. So what are the 2 questions? What are your 2 questions that you ask all your victims? I mean, guests on your victims. Guests.
Dr. Beck, if you had to boil everything you knew down into 3 golden rules, and those golden rules would be helping you stay healthy and disease-free or become healthy and disease-free, what would those rules be?
Oh, man. These questions. See, those are so good. You see how much I yak, man? You would think I could come up with 3 things? I'm probably going to pick this. Well, the first thing is it would have to do, the first starting point is your mindset. Where your brain is, where how your heart is, and things like that. So you'd have to have a mindset conducive to taking on knowledge, loving people, and serving others. Maybe that's the 3. Just came out serendipitously.
Could be.
So that'd probably be what it would be. Is number one, it all starts with your brain. It's what I call there's a lot of things that don't pass the Dr. Beck coma test. Okay, I can't go through grand rounds and take, train people and go, see this person in the coma? Yep, they have bipolar. Doesn't pass the coma test. It only exists in their brain. Oh, this is what a schizophrenic person. No, doesn't. Okay, this is somebody. No, I can take them through. Oh, there's a tumor. A tumor passes the coma test. You have a tumor whether you're in a coma or not. There's a lot of diseases that don't. So what my point of that is this: there's a lot of things that we are exposed to that keep us from having the life and the well-being that we want that are just in our brain. It's just made up crap. It's just stories. It's just baloney. So the first thing is cultivating an immovable spirit. Boom, in your mind. That'd be the first thing. Got to start with you. Number two, immediately has to go to other people. You got to be in the service of your fellow man. You get charity. Somebody's problem is always worse than yours.
Yeah.
That's the way it works, right? So selfless service to other people, it cures so much, man. So, but I said start with you. That's right. Oxygen mask on yourself first. Other people, okay? And then the third thing is I would say improve your environment. That's it. Get things out of it that don't exist, except, when we call it the absence of, God and nature. That's it. So that would be my three. That'll work.
Those are good ones. That works. That works. And lastly, if you just had any kind of final thought or sentiment to take us out with for anyone going through cancer, for themselves or a loved one, whoever might be listening, getting some value from this episode, that'd be a good way to go out.
Yeah. Well, it would basically be, focus on you. Be the focus of you. And realize that cancer is a generic term. Your body created it as a result of your symphony. If you're able to look at what that was and just reverse it, it's amazing. It's what I call the stem cell effect. Okay? A stem cell can become a heart cell, a bone cell, a brain cell, a nerve cell, right? A pancreatic tumor cell, right? A colon polyp. Stem cell can become any of those. What makes it be what it's going to be? The environment. You just got to change your environment to make it conducive to allow your body to heal and repair. That's it. And that's very difficult to do with poisons and IVs, injections of all kinds of stuff, artificial light of hospitals, right? All that kind of fun stuff. So that's what I would do is that you gotta have it and believe it in your brain enough to change your environment. And remember, you be the focus of you. That's where it all starts. You got to know it, feel it, taste it, believe it. This is why we talk about the bravery and we celebrate the victory of the cancer survivor. Because to go through all the crap that you have to go through just in the whole nature of the business out there, it does. It takes guts. It takes courage, right? Some passion, some wherewithal, some conviction and faith and hope and all those wonderful things. So claim the victory once you do it. Look for the victory. Look for the victory. You can get it, no matter what pathway you go. And then once you get that, have the courage to and the guts to realize that you're gonna have to do things different so you don't have any repeats. And lastly, tell your story. Tell other people. Let them know, because they were like you before you had the victory. That's the part of serving other people. That's what I try to do.
Beautiful.
Cool, man.
Dr. Anthony G. Beck. Do you want to let everyone know, which I'm sure they will want to know, where to go for all things Dr. Beck and anything you're working on in particular or would like to, direct their attention toward?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things. Well, my practice, I don't have a location. I do everything virtual. I see patients all around the world. So in other words, I only see a certain amount of patients, and I can tell you that, I don't treat cancer. I don't treat any disease, just so you know. But the point is, if people want to seek some access or time with me, they can do that. They're more than welcome to email me. Well, the first thing they can do is they can go to my website, which is drAnthonyGBeck.com, Anthony that's Glenn, Beck.com. Okay, so they can always go there, learn a little bit more about me. If anyone ever wants to talk to me, the first thing I do is I do ask them to complete an application for consultation, because I want to know who I'm working with. So yeah, start with your story from the very beginning. It holds true, right? I'm not duplicitous. So you would want to submit that, and then I will generally, or my assistant, contact them. So that's the best way, is through my website, apply for consult. If they did have a quick question or something of that nature, I'm very approachable in my attempts to serve my fellow man. So my email address they can reach out to me is dragb. So dragb at drAnthonyGbeck.com. So dragb at drAnthonyGbeck.com. So they can reach me to those things. I've got a fantastic program, that I have available, that I just launched here recently for patients to do a lot of this environmental work, regardless of where they find that and stuff. And I teach them how to quantify, and so that's available. They can. I try not to be a commercial. But what I'll do is I'll give you access to that. Maybe put a little something special for your viewers together that'll, give them a nice little love, special link to give them some money off of that. So if you like that, I'll put that together for you. I'm just thinking outside that. So you can offer that, put it in the show notes.
Yes.
To do that. But it's my Balanced Protocol Enviro program. It's basically 9 modules where I go through a ton of this content, expand upon it, and then do all the how-to videos that I call Dr. Beck in a box. It's pretty cool. So I teach you literally how to mitigate your environment after you assess it. We talked about all the tests and stuff that I recommend. Well, not all of them, but the ones as pertains to things like that. So it's a really amazing thing, because that's what I found was I just couldn't reach enough patients because of my calendar. So I had to figure a way to force multiplier and put things out there of things that I would know, and at a much more affordable price. So I'll do that for you and your viewers if you'd like. But that's how you get a hold of me. That's what they could do. More than happy to.
That's very good.
And also grab me. I'm gonna tell you this. I keep forgetting. See, I'm not a marketer. So the thing about it is Facebook, of course. You can find my my celebrity page, as we call it, is just look Dr. Anthony G. Beck on Facebook. Now I've got my personal Facebook, and then I've got my professional page. I prefer people to just like my professional page. There's also a group that I have that you can join on Facebook that's open to people that have heard about me or whatever, called Balance Nation. Balance Nation Facebook group. They're more than welcome to just stick that in the browser up there at Facebook and ask for an ad to that. And I do a lot of cool stuff in there and answer things with videos from my nation. There's quite a bit of people in there. So that's another option. Boom.
Well, we will sure recap everything you just said once I go back through it and list it all out at mykidcurescancer.com/Anthony-Beck. If you'll allow us to leave out the G, we'll make it easy.
Yeah, that's fine. Whatever you want to do. That's your link. It's your show, man.
All right, Dr. Beck, thank you so much for coming on. This has been very enlightening, and I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it, so really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Glad to do it, brother.
How about that? Taking a look at ourselves as individuals. What a concept. Did you like that keto versus Gerson bit at the end? That's been my view for a while now, but Dr. Beck said it better than I ever could. These things are all tools, but relying on one tool to get you as a person well from head to toe, I just don't think is going to cut it for most of us. Now, I know you know at least one person that can benefit from this episode. Please share it with them. MyKidCuresCancer.com/Anthony-Beck is where you can find the podcast download, YouTube video, highlight article, links to all the resources mentioned, including Dr. Beck's Enviro course, which I'm pretty excited about checking out. Speaking of environment, if you have not already, please get our Healthy Home Checklist and start making your home a healthier place for your family today at mykidcurescancer.com/healthy-home. And I can't say please without saying thank you to Thomas, who is our latest Patreon supporter. Thomas, I don't know what to say except you're awesome, and I'm so glad that you're getting enough out of this show to want to support it monetarily. and I can assure you we will be putting those funds to good use to make everything we do that much more helpful. For everyone else, if you'd like to be part of something really special that we're trying to do here, you can support us by pledging a small monthly donation of your choosing at mykidcurescancer.com/crowd-sponsor. Crowd sponsor, all one word. If you're a parent who could use some help navigating the waters of childhood cancer, please go to mykidcurescancer.com/coaching to set a call and talk about our program for you. That is all for now. Lord willing, we will be back with our Thriver story on Facebook Monday live, and that'll go onto the podcast and YouTube on Thursday. And next Monday on the podcast, we will be with Nicholas Penault, where as a perfect follow-up to this episode, we'll be diving deep into the link between EMF, electromagnetic frequencies, and cancer. Be sure to come back and learn about one of the most serious things impacting our health of our time. Music was provided by the Fat Rat and the Tasty Network, and all editing was done by the one and only Teddy Sternagel. If you're going through cancer, just keep going. This is Ryan Sternagel signing out for now. God bless and Godspeed.